I am proud to create him Prince of Wales, Tywysog Cymru, the country whose title I've been so greatly privileged to bear during so much of my life and duty.
An ancient mechanism buried within royal tradition has reportedly been activated, sending shockwaves through the monarchy. King Charles is said to invoke a heritage clause few believed would ever surface, triggering an unprecedented custody decision involving Meghan. As whispers turn urgent, Princess Catherine is suddenly named guardian, shifting power, protection, and protocol overnight. Cameras chase reactions, insiders scramble, and history feels uncomfortably close. So, is this a misunderstood formality blown out of proportion, or a dramatic assertion of royal authority that could redefine family, duty, and the crown forever? The crown's breaking point. The morning broke quietly over London, but behind the high walls of Buckingham Palace, something historic was already in motion. At exactly 7:46 a.m., the monarchy released a statement that sent shockwaves through Britain and beyond. King Charles, speaking not just as a father, but as the head of the crown, confirmed that Princess Catherine, the Princess of Wales, would now serve as the official guardian for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's children, Archie and Lilibet. The language was formal, careful, and firm, stressing that the decision was made in the name of national dignity and the duty owed to the next generation of the royal family. For many historians, this was one of the most dramatic shifts inside the institution since the abdication crisis of 1936. In a single move, the palace signaled that the Sussex children were no longer solely under their parents' private care, but had been placed under royal oversight. This was not framed as punishment, but as protection, a step meant to safeguard both their future and the integrity of the monarchy. Behind closed doors, senior royal advisors had been growing increasingly uneasy for months, describing a pattern of instability, questionable decisions, and what they called a fading sense of royal responsibility. Palace insiders insisted this was not a reaction to one incident, but the result of concerns that had been building since mid-2025. Still, one event stood out as the final breaking point. On January 24, 2026, Meghan Markle appeared at the Royal Women's Empowerment Forum in Dubai, hosted at the Burj Al Arab. Instead of keeping a low profile, she took the stage before an international audience and introduced herself as the mother of future royal change makers. She wore diamond earrings, originally gifted to the British crown by the Saudi royal family in 2014, and stood beneath a glittering banner that prominently referenced her children by name. What alarmed officials even more was what was missing. There was no mention of Prince Harry and no clear acknowledgement of the crown's role. According to reports gathered by British intelligence and diplomatic officials in the UAE, the event featured unofficial branding that closely resembled royal symbols. Some materials even used terms suggesting royal authority, while also promoting Meghan's upcoming book and lifestyle ventures. These actions were seen as a direct violation of a confidential agreement Harry and Meghan had signed in July 2025. Which strictly limited the use of royal titles and imagery abroad, without formal approval. During this time, King Charles made several attempts to reach his son. Between January 18th and January 30th, he tried 3 times to contact Harry directly. 2 calls were routed through security channels in Montecito, while a final message was sent via the British consulate in Los Angeles. None of these efforts received a response. Instead, photographs later showed Harry in Las Vegas on January 28th, attending a cybersecurity conference linked to a former Invictus Games sponsor. He appeared alone, distant, and unwilling to speak to the press. Palace sources described him as withdrawn and emotionally disconnected from the growing crisis back home. Legally, the Crown did not act blindly. 3 key frameworks supported the decision. First was the Succession Clarity Protocol, which states that any royal child under 16 must have stable and verified guardianship if their parents are deemed unfit or negligent. Second was the Legacy Protection Clause, a rarely used rule dating back to 1937 that allows the Crown to step in when royal minors face neglect, displacement, or reputational harm.
A gallaf eich sicrhau fy mod wedi cymryd sylwi o'r gobeithion am lygwyd anddyn nhw.
Finally, the Royal Child Welfare Oversight Act of 2024 provided a modern legal pathway for appointing guardianship in matters concerning the royal line. All three were cited in the official filing submitted to the High Court's Family Division on January 31st by Lord Pembroke on behalf of the Sovereign Circle. With Princess Catherine now formally named as guardian, the monarchy had drawn a clear line in the sand. Yet this dramatic move raises a deeper and more unsettling question about what truly pushed the king to act in such an unprecedented way. Let's uncover what really happened behind palace doors that made this step unavoidable. Why the Crown moved to protect Archie and Lilibet. Behind the calm smiles of the royal family, a fierce legal and moral battle had been unfolding for months. At the center of it all was Princess Anne, whose influence inside the palace carried the weight of decades of loyalty to the Crown. On January 27th, at Sandringham, she submitted a detailed dossier that shook senior royals to their core. This report had not been rushed. It had been carefully built over 4 months by the Office of Royal Protocol. Page after page documented what the palace viewed as a troubling pattern of behavior involving Meghan Markle. The dossier listed 17 separate instances in which Meghan allegedly used royal titles or symbolism without approval. It also highlighted 6 brand deals that referenced Archie and Lilibet without palace consent. Even more concerning were 3 testimonies from former staff members who described emotional instability and poor delegation of the children's care. The report also flagged 2 large payments made to childcare agencies in California that had not been properly vetted. During a tense closed-door meeting at Clarence House, Princess Anne spoke bluntly. She insisted that Archie and Lilibet were not props, not marketing tools, and not trophies for personal image or financial gain. In her words, they were Windsors, and the Windsors must be protected. This strong stance helped prepare the palace for legal backlash. As expected, Meghan's legal team quickly condemned the move, describing it as an attempt at maternal erasure through legacy law. Yet inside the palace, there was broad agreement that Princess Catherine was the right choice as royal guardian. A confidential memo circulated among senior aides described her as calm, balanced, deeply committed to the institution, and genuinely invested in the children's long-term well-being. Catherine did not take the role lightly. She quietly consulted experts, including 2 child development advisors from UNICEF, a British trauma psychologist specializing in cross-border custody issues, and former aides of Queen Elizabeth II. Together, they crafted a structured plan for Archie and Lilibet's future. This included bilingual education in both the UK and the US, seasonal cultural programs at Balmoral and Sandringham, and a complete halt to all commercial content featuring the children. The plan also proposed a sealed personal identity trust to support their emotional, academic, and legal needs until 2040. At the same time, the Sovereign Circle issued a strict financial compliance order. Meghan was instructed to repay £842,000 in backdated child development costs and hand over all profits made from using the children's names and images since January 2023. She was also told to stop plans for a memoir reportedly titled The Crown Behind the Crib. Palace officials warned that failure to comply could result in frozen UK assets granted under previous agreements. This was not a decision driven by anger or impulse. It was the result of careful, steady escalation inside the monarchy. What had once been a private family matter had grown into a question of national duty and institutional survival. On December 18, 2025, Prince William chaired a secret legal meeting at Windsor Castle with officials from the royal household, the Home Office, and financial auditors linked to the sovereign grant. They reviewed red flag findings from an audit of Archewell Foundation accounts, which showed over £1.2 million spent on media positioning involving the children, including preparations for an unauthorized docu-series called Archie and Lilibet, California Royals. William's reaction was reportedly furious. A palace source said he made it clear that the monarchy was not a reality show. Soon after, Princess Anne submitted her formal dossier, which included testimony from a Canadian child development expert who had observed Lilibet in Vancouver. The advisor warned that the child showed signs of anxiety and emotional confusion, likely caused by constant media exposure and an unstable environment. As tensions reached their peak, Princess Catherine quietly formed her own private working group to prepare for what many inside the palace now saw as inevitable, a full custody transition process. So let's explore the chilling details that plan contains that even the Sussexes never saw coming. The royal custody clash. By early January 2026, a detailed plan for transferring custody of the Sussex children had already been quietly drafted. It was far from ordinary. The blueprint didn't just cover who would care for the children. It laid out strict educational stabilization measures, psychological support systems, and an absolute ban on media exposure using their images. Beyond that, the plan proposed an independent trust, managed by the Duchy of Cornwall, to fund every child-related expense until 2040. Behind closed doors in the UK, this quiet machinery was in motion, while halfway across the world in California, Meghan Markle was preparing her next move. On January 12th, Archewell Legal sent a preservation notice to top media outlets, asserting that any royal interference with her parental rights could be considered extra-jurisdictional overreach. At the same time, her PR team began releasing previews of her upcoming memoir, The Crown Behind the Crib, portraying it as a mother's battle against the monarchy's attempts to erase her influence. Tensions escalated further on January 27th. Intelligence briefings reached the palace with recordings obtained through diplomatic channels. At a private Dubai donor event, Meghan allegedly declared, "Let them try to take my children. This crown feeds on tradition, and I am rewriting the script. In everybody tenders nobody to the sovereign circle." This was no longer just about controlling the narrative. It was about containment. By January 30th, a critical vote took place at Sandringham. Queen Camilla abstained, but Princess Anne, Prince William, and Duchess Sophie voted unanimously to trigger the Royal Guardian Protocol. Within a day, Catherine's name had been officially added to the custodial writ. The Crown's decision was clear. This was not about power. It was about continuity. The next day, the palace converted policy into legal action. On January 31st, a sealed 47-page filing, drafted by Lord Pembroke and signed under sovereign authority, was delivered to the family division of the High Court. The submission invoked 3 emergency instruments: the Legacy Protection Clause, the Royal Child Welfare Oversight Act, and the newly ratified Liat Protocol, designed to protect royal minors from commercial exploitation across borders. The dossier presented to the court painted a stark picture. Archie and Lilith had been shifting between homes in California and temporary overseas locations, their schooling inconsistent, and their security arrangements funded through private contracts instead of accredited channels. Spreadsheets detailed Archie's attendance at 3 separate private tutoring programs in just 18 months, none lasting more than 12 weeks. Lilith had no verified preschool placement after September 2025. At the heart of the case was Princess Anne's sworn memorandum, documenting a deliberate strategy to rebrand the Sussex children for commercial purposes. Licensing drafts, speaking engagement proposals, and sponsorship plans circulated in the Gulf between October 2025 and January 2026. The memo concluded clinically. Attempts to monetize royal minors without institutional approval created material risks to their welfare, security, and legal standing. The filing demanded strict compliance from Meghan, including quarterly disclosure of all income linked to the children, an immediate halt to merchandising or promotional projects, contributions of at least £1.6 million annually to a protected child trust, and retroactive reimbursement of £842,000 for misallocated expenses. Non-compliance would trigger asset freezes in the UK and reciprocal motions in US courts. Catherine has now been officially granted full custody of Archie and Lilibet, placing the children firmly under the Crown's protection. But what unique strategy has she developed for their care? And how will it reshape the delicate balance between parental loyalty and institutional responsibility? Let's uncover the full story behind this historic decision. Catherine granted full custody. By early February 2026, Buckingham Palace had moved decisively from planning to action, laying the groundwork for structured oversight of Archie and Lilibet. The Crown did not seek to immediately relocate the children from California, but it secured temporary supervisory authority, granting Princess Catherine control over schooling, healthcare, and travel permissions. Any public, commercial, or foreign appearances now require written approval from her office. Briefing notes sent to Commonwealth diplomats emphasized three priorities: stabilization, depoliticization, and long-term developmental continuity, stressing that the measures were protective, not punitive. Prince William, leading legal coordination with the Home Office, insisted that filings remain strictly factual. Drafts framing parental behavior in moral terms were discarded in favor of documents, contracts, residency logs, and accounting records. "We win this on paper," he reportedly reminded advisors. Across the Atlantic, Meghan's legal team quickly countered, asserting that the children were habitual U.S. residents and warning of forum shopping. They contested financial claims, framing security and consultancy costs as justified due to ongoing media scrutiny. Yet legal analysts noted the palace's approach was methodical. The case rested on documented transactional patterns, not emotions, including monetization linked to the minors and disrupted schooling, providing courts with strong, concrete evidence. By the first week of February, the dispute had evolved into a complex, multi-jurisdictional issue involving British constitutional advisors, American family law experts, and diplomatic intermediaries. Guardianship was no longer symbolic. Catherine, formally appointed as royal guardian of succession for Archie and Lilibet, began implementing a carefully staged reintegration plan, designed with pediatric specialists, education advisors, and child welfare officials. The strategy focused on three pillars: emotional rehabilitation, institutional normalization, and protection from reputational volatility. Education took center stage. A dual-track, bilingual academic model was designed, funded by the Crown, but managed through independent international schools in the UK and Canada. Curricula emphasized heritage studies, civic engagement, and critical thinking rather than formal royal protocol. Archie, age 7, was set to start structured learning in March 2026, with Lilibet beginning foundational programs in September. Seasonal rotations between Windsor and Victoria, British Columbia, combined with monitored peer interactions outside royal circles, aimed to reduce media influence and foster stability. Psychological evaluations monitored adjustment and trauma from the children's high-profile family circumstances. A royal child content moratorium was enforced. All media, commercial, or promotional use of the children's images, voices, or names required institutional consent. Notices were issued to Meghan, Harry, and collaborators, while streaming platforms with prior unauthorized proposals were formally warned. Private royal connections were preserved. Catherine and Princess Anne supervised quarterly heritage retreats at Balmoral and Sandringham, with Lady Louise Windsor appointed as cultural liaison. Curated access to royal archives and a sealed letter from King Charles detailing optional public engagement at adulthood ensured the children's heritage remained intact without premature institutional obligations. The Privy Council approved a supplemental guardianship framework. Catherine could appoint 3 operational caregivers: Lady Louise for mentorship, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, for emotional support and logistics, and a confidential education liaison, with Prince Edward handling emergency international coordination. Funding came from a dedicated Windsor Child Continuity Trust with £12 million from private reserves, audited under the Duchy of Cornwall. Internal royal consensus remained firm, overriding procedural concerns from Queen Camilla. King Charles emphasized that the initiative was about child protection, not parental conflict. Public disclosure was minimal, quietly updating Catherine's royal biography while keeping operational details internal. In the U.S., Meghan's team filed emergency applications asserting maternal custody and declaring the children as U.S. residents, escalating cross-border tension. The framework was now in place, legally validated and operational. So what exactly made Catherine the chosen guardian for Archie and Lilibet, and how will this unprecedented royal intervention reshape the monarchy's future? Keep watching to find out. Why King Charles chose Catherine. King Charles's activation of the Heritage Clause has been widely portrayed as a bold move to strip Meghan Markle of custody. Yet when viewed through the lens of William and Catherine's parenting philosophy, it reads less like punishment and more like a reaffirmation of enduring royal values. For years, the Prince and Princess of Wales have championed a modern royal family life that balances duty with normality. Their move from the grandeur of Kensington Palace to the quieter Adelaide Cottage in Windsor sent a clear message. The children's well-being takes priority over pomp. Nestled closer to nature and farther from relentless media attention, their home reflects a belief that stability nurtures character, a principle now echoed in the decision regarding Archie and Lilibet. Education has always been central to this approach. By sending George, Charlotte, and Louis to Lambrook School, William and Catherine emphasized kindness, creativity, and emotional growth alongside academic achievement. Their choice to avoid the most traditional aristocratic institutions signaled that resilience and empathy are as important as royal privilege. Catherine's long-standing advocacy for early childhood development, highlighting the formative power of the first years, further establishes her credibility as a natural guardian. In this context, Catherine's appointment as guardian of royal succession for Archie and Lilibet carries weight that is both symbolic and practical. She is framed not as a replacement parent, but as a steward of continuity, tasked with preserving the cultural, emotional, and ethical foundations of the next generation of royals. As future queen, Catherine embodies calm, discretion, and balance, the qualities the monarchy now seeks to transmit. William's role complements this vision perfectly. As heir, he has consistently argued that the crown must evolve while retaining its core identity. His firm opposition to the commercialization of his own children mirrors the intent behind the Heritage Clause, to protect royal identity over personal preference. The focus is clearly on shielding the children from exposure, media exploitation, and public pressure, rather than controlling their parents. King Charles's decision, then, aligns seamlessly with the Wales's values. By placing Catherine in a guardianship role, the monarchy signals trust in a parenting model grounded in stability, dignity, and discretion. This move also reflects a generational shift. Charles, acutely aware of his own turbulent upbringing, appears confident that William and Catherine can safeguard the youngest royals with a balance of care and guidance. The Heritage Clause, in this light, becomes less a tool of conflict and more a bridge between generations. Catherine is cast as the cultural custodian of royal values, ensuring Archie and Lilibet grow up in a secure, nurturing, and value-driven environment, one that mirrors the stability already cultivated within the Wales household. But how will Meghan's legal team respond to this unprecedented move? And what could it mean for the monarchy's delicate balance of tradition and modernity? Stick around as we dive into the most interesting part. The Sussex legal storm: maternal rights versus royal oversight. By early February 2026, Meghan Markle's legal team had launched a full-scale transatlantic media counteroffensive. Press statements sent to CNN, The Guardian, and other major outlets painted the palace's actions as a coordinated effort to marginalize a mother of mixed-race royal children. The phrase maternal erasure quickly went viral, appearing in over 48 news articles within just 72 hours. Headlines focused on emotional narratives, portraying Meghan as a mother under siege, but behind the scenes, her legal and financial infrastructure revealed critical vulnerabilities. A confidential forensic review ordered by the UK's Child Welfare Commissioner exposed troubling discrepancies in Archwell's accounts. The investigation highlighted £726,000 in PR retainer fees paid to 4 firms for monitoring public sentiment around the children, over £180,000 in first-class travel expenses for solo trips taken by Meghan between 2023 and 2025, and no verified tuition payments from accredited schools between July 2025 and January 2026. Every detail fed into the palace's strategy, showing a pattern of inconsistent child-related expenditures and raising questions about financial prioritization. Seizing on this information, the palace amended its High Court petition. The revised filing requested court-supervised audits of any trust or corporate structures monetizing Archie and Lilith's images, likenesses, or identities. Under pressure from Princess Anne, the palace also introduced a parental responsibility compliance order aligned with the HEG Convention on the civil aspects of international child abduction. This legal framework would make UK guardianship and maintenance rulings provisionally enforceable in U.S. courts pending recognition hearings, an unprecedented step in cross-border royal custody. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic in Montecito, Meghan pursued a dual strategy. First, she accelerated negotiations with publishers for her memoir, The Crown Behind the Crib: A Mother's Truth, sharing previews under strict NDAs. Sources indicate the manuscript leans heavily on betrayal, race, and victimhood, framing the palace's actions as a symbolic abdication of her maternal identity. Second, Archwell filed a pre-litigation motion against Netflix and Spotify, alleging breaches of implicit support agreements. While the motion sought legal recognition, insiders suggest it was also a warning to media platforms against fully complying with the palace's content moratorium on child-related material. The palace's position gained new strength on February 11th when an anonymous leak revealed internal Archwell emails outlining early 2025 plans for a California Royal Kids podcast. One email suggested, "The key is to position the children as aspirational, without violating title boundaries. Brand them as heritage adjacent." For the palace, this was confirmation of Princess Anne's claim. The children were being commercially framed without consent, reinforcing the urgency of legal intervention. Within hours, senior Home Office officials authorized discussions with U.S. federal agencies to enforce custodial rights, citing reputational risk and a sustained pattern of commodification. By February 12th, 3 major international law firms had submitted amicus briefs supporting the Crown's position, emphasizing the necessity of ethical guardianship for minors exposed to extraordinary media and institutional pressures. The legal and media storm had reached fever pitch, with both sides desperate for leverage and every leak, headline, and court filing carrying unprecedented weight. As the palace tightened its legal and institutional grip, Prince Harry now faced a breaking point. Let's reveal his dramatic reaction to the escalating case. Prince Harry reaches the breaking point. The palace had moved from reactive litigation to proactive protection. Catherine maintained a careful public silence, allowing only official press statements while quietly expanding her role behind the scenes. She issued a sealed briefing to the Department for Education, detailing a 6-year reintegration plan for Archie and Lilith. The plan included cross-border foster residency protocols in case either Meghan or Harry refused compliance, reflecting the Crown's priority, safeguarding the children's long-term security, dignity, and identity, rather than controlling the parents. As the legal filings escalated and the custodial framework tightened, Prince Harry reached a critical threshold. For nearly 6 weeks, he had remained publicly silent. No statements, no filings, no formal legal engagement in London's High Court proceedings. But behind the scenes, that silence was fracturing. Harry reportedly sent Prince William an encrypted message. The tone was not confrontational but fractured, revealing the internal pressure he had been under. Sources indicate he admitted feeling mentally cornered, torn between loyalty to Meghan and the intensifying institutional scrutiny surrounding their children. That same day, a private wellness practitioner associated with Harry's Invictus Circle contacted Kensington Palace, flagging serious concerns about the Duke's psychological state. A sealed memo to the Home Secretary documented chronic dissociation, extreme fatigue, and profound identity dislocation. In response, William convened a private session with King Charles, Princess Anne, and Catherine. The discussion centered not on adversarial strategy, but on addressing Harry as a potential liability, his indecision threatening the stability of Archie and Lilith's upbringing. Princess Anne reportedly insisted the matter was structural, not personal. This was about protecting the monarchy's legacy, not family drama. Catherine echoed that emotional fragility could not override the crown's duty to the children. King Charles ultimately broke the deadlock. By early February, he signed a directive invoking the rarely used Heritage Sovereignty Clause, a constitutional mechanism last applied during post-1949 reforms. The order reaffirmed the monarchy's authority to appoint a permanent guardian when biological parents were deemed unfit, unavailable, or in conflict with institutional integrity. Princess Catherine remained the designated guardian. The following morning, the directive was transmitted to the High Court and Home Office, accompanied by a formal statement from Clarence House. Archie and Lilith would now be under Catherine's care, and no further commentary would be issued. In Montecito, Harry reportedly collapsed upon reading the release, reaching out to a former SAS colleague for a potential return to the UK without Meghan. Meanwhile, Meghan's memoir negotiations reportedly stalled, and actual operations were, largely, suspended. Within the palace, the focus shifted to quietly reintegrating the children under Catherine, Anne, and Sophie. Prince William reportedly summarized the situation during the final meeting. "This isn't exile. This is a rescue." Structure, not scandal, had been drawn as the final line, securing the children's future. So, what do you think of this royal decision? Are they truly protecting the children or acting in their own interest? We would like to hear your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.